Welcome to another episode of the Bark Brigade podcast by Dogazilla magazine. Today, we will talk about important topic and offer you a guide to help all families that owns a dog or other pet.
Thank you. I'm really excited to get into this because, well, it's such a complex area.
It really is. I mean, imagine, just for a second, picking up a scent on the wind from like 3 miles away.
Oh, well, yeah.
And imagine that this smell is so incredibly powerful that it instantly rewrites your brain's operating system. You completely forget to eat, or sleep, or even protect yourself.
Right. It just takes over completely.
Exactly.
Right.
And that is the reality of the canine mating drive. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the deeply instinctual chemical and behavioral world of dog courtship rituals.
Which is a world that operates on a frequency that is just completely alien to our own human experience.
Yeah, we really don't experience anything like it.
We don't. We look at our dogs, and because they, sleep on our couches and eat from bowls in our kitchens, we assume we understand their motivations.
Right, we see them wag their tails, we see them play.
Exactly. But when reproductive instincts take over, there's this entirely hidden layer of communication that awakens. And it is happening right under our noses.
Which is exactly why we are framing this deep dive directly for you, the listener. Because whether you are a responsible dog breeder trying to ensure the absolute safest breeding practices in like a multi-dog facility.
Or even just a dedicated owner.
Yes, an owner who needs to monitor your pet's health and maintain a secure environment at the local park, you have to understand these rituals.
You really do. Because misinterpreting these signals is not just a matter of harmless confusion,
No, it can lead to some really bad outcomes.
It can lead to extreme psychological stress for the animals.
Yeah.
Or severe health issues. And highly dangerous, aggressive situations.
It requires a shift, right? From simply watching your dogs to actually translating their physical and, chemical vocabulary?
Precisely. Because mating behavior is not merely the physical act itself. It's not that simple.
Right.
It is a highly elaborate, intensely negotiated sequence. It involves invisible chemical alerts, physical posturing, dominance displays, and biological auditing.
Biological auditing, I like that term. And if you are managing a kennel, understanding the sequence step by step is completely non-negotiable for the physical and mental well-being of your pack.
Absolutely non-negotiable.
So our mission for this deep dive is to decode that canine language of love. We are going to explore the biological mechanics of the chemical signals that kickstart the process.
The physical displays of strength and affection, too.
Yeah, and those subtle behavioral shifts that act as red flags. By the time we finish, you will be equipped to definitively distinguish between normal, friendly social play, actual instinct-driven mating behaviors, and, the kind of competition that can tear a kennel apart.
And making that distinction is so critical because to the untrained human eye, a friendly game of tag and a high-stakes, testosterone-fueled courtship ritual can look surprisingly similar.
Oh, for sure. The vocabulary of play and the vocabulary of mating overlap in ways that frequently confuse owners.
They do. But to the dogs involved, the context is everything. And the stakes quite literally dictate their genetic future.
Let's start at the absolute beginning then. Before there is any physical flirting, before a single tail wags or a play bow is offered, the courtship process actually begins with a completely invisible language.
A chemical language.
Right. To understand this, we have to look at how dogs communicate their readiness from a distance. It is all driven by pheromones and scent marking.
It is, yeah.
But I really want to dig into the biology here. When a female dog goes into heat, what is actually happening on a chemical level?
Well, it is a massive physiological transformation. As she enters the proestrus and estrus phases of her cycle, her endocrine system orchestrates this huge surge of hormone.
Mainly estrogen, right?
Yes, particularly estrogen, and then followed by a rise in progesterone. And this hormonal shift changes her entire body chemistry.
Wow.
She begins to synthesize and release specific, highly volatile chemical compounds. Those are the pheromones. And these aren't just pleasant scents.
No, they're active signals.
Exactly. They're complex chemical messengers. And they're designed to trigger a specific, unlearned behavioral response in another member of the same species.
And these pheromones are heavily concentrated in her urine, right? And vaginal secretions. So she is actively leaving a chemical broadcast out in the world wherever she goes.
She is essentially painting the environment with her reproductive status. But what is truly extraordinary is the male dog's equipment for reading this broadcast.
Because it's not normal smelling, is it?
Not at all. We often talk about how great a dog's sense of smell is, but for pheromones, they actually use an entirely different biological system. It's called the vomeronasal organ.
Or the Jacobson's organ, right?
Yes, exactly.
Wait, so they aren't smelling these pheromones the same way they smell, like a piece of bacon dropping on the floor?
Now, completely different mechanism. When a male dog smells bacon, the scent molecules hit the olfactory receptors in the nasal cavity, and the signal goes straight to the olfactory cortex.
Where the brain identifies it as food.
Right. But pheromones are heavy, moisture-borne molecules. When a male encounters them, he uses a specific breathing technique. You'll often see this characterized by chattering teeth or rapid, shallow panting.
Oh, I've seen that. They look almost like they're shivering their jaw.
Yes, that's it. That motion pulls those heavy molecules up through a tiny duct located just behind his incisors on the roof of his mouth.
Wow, so it goes through the mouth, not just the nose.
Exactly. This directs the pheromones straight into the vomeronasal organ.
And this organ is wired differently in the brain, right? I read that it bypasses a lot of the standard processing.
Completely differently, the Jacobson's organ bypasses the cognitive thinking part of the brain almost entirely.
That's incredible.
It is wired directly into the amygdala and the hypothalamus. Those are the ancient deep brain centers that control raw emotion, aggression, and sexual behavior.
So that explains why the male's reaction is so immediate and involuntary. He doesn't smell the pheromone and, think about his response.
Right, there is no conscious thought process going on.
Yeah.
The chemical physically throws a switch in his nervous system.
Which totally explains the intense physical reactions you see. It's not just a wagging tail. His body mechanically prepares for pursuit. You actually see his nostrils visibly flare.
Yes, the nostril flaring is key. By flaring, he is changing the aerodynamics of his nose.
To funnel as many of those heavy molecules into his system as possible.
It is a mechanical optimization, yeah.
Right.
And alongside the flared nostrils, you will see his pupils dilate massively.
Oh, wow, really?
Oh, yeah. Pupil dilation is a classic sign of the sympathetic nervous system kicking into high gear. The fight or flight, or in this case, the reproductive drive response.
So his whole body goes on alert.
His heart rate elevates, his blood pressure changes, and his resting state is entirely shattered. He is now in a state of intense, hyper-focused arousal.
I want to look at how this plays out geographically, because this is where it gets crazy. If a male can detect these specific pheromones from incredible distances, we aren't just talking about a dog sniffing a patch of grass in his own backyard.
No, we are not.
We are talking about scent molecules carried on the wind from miles away. I mean, it's basically like an invisible neighborhood-wide group text alert that just completely hijacks every male dog's attention. It overrides all other software in their brains.
That is a perfect analogy. The sensitivity is just staggering. A male dog's vomeronasal system can detect these pheromones in parts per trillion.
Parts per trillion, that is hard to even fathom.
It is. If the wind is right, a male dog can easily be alerted to a female in heat several miles away. And once that alert hits his amygdala, he begins communicating back.
He doesn't just passively track the scent.
No, he actively engages in scent marking.
He starts urinating on vertical objects to mark his territory. But wait, if the female is miles away, who is he talking to with this urine?
He is talking to his local competition.
Ah, the other males.
Exactly. Scent marking is a highly complex, layered communication system. By lifting his leg and urinating as high as possible on a tree or a fence post, he's doing two things.
Getting it up in the air.
Right. First, placing the scent higher up allows the wind to catch it and carry his own chemical signature further. Second, he is broadcasting his own availability and dominance to any other males in the vicinity.
So he's saying, I'm here, back off.
Basically, yes. He is laying down a chemical perimeter that says, I am here, I am pursuing this scent, and I am claiming this territory.
If we translate this incredible long-distance chemical hijacking to a modern breeder's facility, the implications are massive for you guys listening. Let's look at a day in the life of a kennel manager. If you have a state-of-the-art facility with, say, 5 intact males in one wing, and a female goes into a heat cycle in another wing, simply putting a solid door between them isn't going to do anything, is it?
A solid door is completely useless against volatile organic compounds.
That makes sense.
If you are not actively managing the airflow, those pheromones will travel through the HVAC system, slip under door gaps, and completely saturate the male wing of the kennel.
And because the vomeronasal organ triggers an involuntary hormonal cascade, you're going to have 5 male dogs whose brains are screaming at them to pursue a female they cannot reach.
And that leads to the behavioral overrides we see. The drive is so strong that they literally forget basic survival functions.
Like eating. They just stop eating.
They will completely refuse food. They will pace their enclosures obsessively, sometimes to the point of wearing their paw pads raw.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is. They won't sleep. The ambient cortisol and adrenaline levels in that room will skyrocket. This isn't just an annoyance for the breeder. It is a profound animal welfare issue.
Because they're under so much physical stress.
Exactly. A male dog locked in that state of frustrated drive will drop weight. His immune system will be compromised from lack of sleep, and the frustration frequently boils over into displaced aggression toward the other males in the room.
So as a responsible breeder, you have to engineer your facility almost like a clean room. You need to understand negative and positive air pressure.
Yes, HVAC management is crucial.
You need to ensure the exhaust from the female's quarantine area is expelled completely outside and downwind from the male enclosures.
You also have to manage yourself. This is a big one. Breeders can easily become fomites.
Fomites meaning objects that carry the scent.
Exactly. If you go into the female's run to check on her, pet her, and then walk directly into the male kennel wearing the same boots and the same jacket, you have just walked a concentrated dose of pheromones right into their living space.
You essentially became the group text alert.
You did. You have to change clothes, wash your hands, and use foot baths. Managing the invisible architecture of scent is the first and most critical line of defense in kennel management.
That is fascinating. Okay, so let's assume the breeder is managing the environment perfectly, or we are looking at a controlled, intentional mating scenario. The male has picked up the chemical signal, he has followed the trail, and he is now physically in the presence of the female. The invisible language has done its job.
Right.
Now we transition to the physical flirtation, because the female has to confirm she is actually ready, right?
Exactly. The pheromones act as the wide broadcast invitation, but the physical body language is the localized confirmation. Just because a female smells like she is in heat does not mean she is biologically ready to accept a male.
Wait, really? The smell doesn't mean she's ready right that second?
No, not at all. The heat cycle has distinct phases, and she will aggressively reject a male if he approaches during the proestrus phase before she's actually ovulating.
Which means she has to display very specific physical flirting behaviors to signal that she has entered estrus and is, receptive. Let's break down those mechanics. The most definitive sign is when she exposes and raises her rear toward the male and moves her tail completely out of the way.
In veterinary breeding terms, this is called flagging.
Flagging, got it.
It is a very deliberate mechanical postural shift. She will stand firm, brace her hind legs to support the weight of the male, arch her back slightly, and rigidly pull her tail to one side.
Oh, so she's physically locking into place.
Yes. This exposes the vulva and provides clear, unobstructed access. It is the ultimate green light. But usually, there is a whole sequence of social posturing that happens before she flags.
Right, like play bows. She will use play bows to engage him. She will drop her front elbows to the ground, keep her rear end high, and stare at him.
And that direct eye contact is a vital piece of the puzzle. In normal, everyday dog communication, prolonged direct eye contact is often perceived as a challenge, right?
Yeah, a threat or a sign of dominance. It can easily trigger a fight.
Exactly. But in the context of courtship, coupled with a relaxed, low-held head and a sweeping tail wag, that intense eye contact becomes a tool of engagement. She is holding his attention, assessing his confidence, and drawing him in.
And if his attention wanders, she might even use vocalizations, right? Like whining, crying, or sharp little barks to pull his focus back to her.
She will, yes.
But there is another behavior that is incredibly important for breeders and owners to monitor, and that is excessive genital licking. During a heat cycle, the female will groom her private areas intensely.
She will, and it's a very noticeable behavior shift.
Now, I want to ask a biological question here. If the whole point of her being in heat is to broadcast those pheromones to attract a mate, why would she obsessively lick away the very discharge that contains the chemical signal? Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
That is a brilliant question, and it speaks to how complex this behavior really is. When she is licking, she is not actually removing the scent to hide it. She's doing two things.
Okay, what's the first?
First, she is spreading the discharge across the fur of her hindquarters. By moving the fluid from a concentrated source and spreading it over a larger surface area of hair, she is actually increasing the rate of evaporation.
Oh, wow.
Which pushes more of the volatile pheromones into the air. She is amplifying the broadcast.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. It's like spreading perfume on your wrists and neck rather than just leaving it in the bottle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It maximizes the surface area. Yeah. The second reason is purely physiological. The hormonal surge causes a massive increase in blood flow to the vulva, leading to significant swelling, tissue engorgement, and stretching.
Which sounds painful, or at least uncomfortable.
It is highly uncomfortable. It causes localized itching and a feeling of pressure. The licking is a mechanical way to relieve that discomfort.
And there's a psychological layer to this as well, isn't there? Because going into heat is a stressful, chaotic time for a dog's body.
It is incredibly stressful. Her hormones are fluctuating wildly. The repetitive, rhythmic motion of grooming acts as a profound self-soothing mechanism.
Like a nervous habit, almost.
Exactly. The physical act of licking stimulates the release of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers and mood elevators, in her brain. It helps lower her anxiety and brings her baseline stress levels down.
But this natural, soothing behavior is precisely where we have to issue a massive health warning for owners and breeders. Because while some licking is hygienic and soothing, excessive licking is a major, glaring red flag.
It is one of the biggest warning signs you can look for.
And telling the difference between a dog who is just keeping herself clean and a dog who is signaling a serious, potentially life-threatening medical issue requires serious observation. So let me ask you this. If every dog has its own style, and some females skip the obvious flirting entirely, how does a breeder objectively tell the difference between a dog just keeping herself clean and a dog signaling a serious medical issue like a UTI?
That is the million-dollar question, and this is where a breeder's experience and documentation come into play. A female in heat is highly susceptible to infections because the cervix is open, allowing bacteria from the environment to enter the reproductive tract.
Right.
Excessive frantic licking is often the first and only symptom of a urinary tract infection or a UTI or vaginitis.
And if left untreated, that bacteria can travel up into the uterus and cause pyometra, which is a life-threatening emergency. So how do we define excessive? If I'm watching my dog, what is the boundary line between normal hygiene and a medical crisis?
The boundary line is defined by the disruption of normal life patterns. Normal hygienic licking is episodic.
What do you mean by episodic?
A female will clean herself after she urinates or after she wakes up from a nap. It's a clear beginning and end. Once she is clean, she will go back to sleeping, she will eat her food, or she will engage with you.
It's a chore on her to-do list, and she checks it off.
Exactly. Pathological licking, driven by a UTI or vaginitis, is frantic and unrelenting. The dog is not trying to clean herself. She's desperately trying to alleviate the sensation of burning, sharp pain, or severe irritation.
So it interrupts her day.
Yes, if she is interrupting her meals to lick, if she cannot sleep because she is constantly waking up to groom, or if she is walking a few steps, suddenly sitting down to lick and repeating this over and over, you've crossed into a medical emergency.
You also have to look at the physical tissue, right? If she is licking so aggressively that the area becomes raw or angry red.
Yes, visual inspection is key.
Right.
Or if there is a sudden foul-smelling odor that is distinctly different from the normal metallic scent of a heat cycle. If you notice any of that, you need to get to a vet immediately.
And isn't there also a risk of something like OCD?
There is, yes. Obsessive-compulsive disorder can occur where the anxiety of the heat cycle causes the dog to hyperfixate on grooming until she creates open sores, known as hotspots.
And the vet's role here is critical. A breeder cannot diagnose a UTI just by looking at the dog. The vet will need to perform a urinalysis or a swab to check for elevated white blood cells and specific bacteria.
Absolutely.
And if the vet clears the dog of infection and determines the licking is purely behavioral or a mild localized irritation, they might recommend strategies to break the compulsive cycle. Things like vet-approved deterrent sprays or bitter substances. But you have to be incredibly careful with those, right? You can't just spray chemicals on sensitive, swollen tissue.
Absolutely not. You never apply a deterrent spray directly to the mucosal tissue of the vulva. It will burn, cause excruciating pain, and make the inflammation infinitely worse.
That sounds awful.
It is. If recommended by a vet, these bitter substances are applied to the fur around the area to create an unpleasant taste barrier. It discourages the tongue without irritating the sensitive anatomy. But again, this is only after a vet has absolutely ruled out an infection.
Right, safety first. Okay, so let's shift our focus back to the courtship. The female has signaled she is healthy and receptive, the pheromones are in the air, the flagging has occurred. Now the male has to step up. And this is fascinating because it is not just a chaotic free-for-all.
No, it's very structured.
There is an elaborate, deeply ingrained set of, gentlemanly rituals the male must perform to prove he is a worthy mate.
The male's approach is highly ritualized because he has to carefully navigate the female's defenses. Even if she is receptive, a clumsy, overly aggressive, or startling approach can cause her to snap, bite, and reject him instantly.
So he begins with a baseline of polite posturing. He will approach with his head slightly lowered, right?
Yes. Lowering the head is a universal mammalian appeasement signal. He is making himself look smaller and communicating, I am not a threat, I am not here to challenge you for dominance.
And his tail will be wagging, but it's often a very specific wag, like a stiff, fast cadence that indicates high arousal but cautious optimism.
Right, it's not a relaxed, sweeping wag. It's very focused. And he will make vocalizations, but not loud barks.
Hmm.
Low, rhythmic sounds, grumbles, soft whines, almost like a humming sound.
It's almost cute.
It is. These low vocalizations are pacifying. They're meant to keep the female calm as he closes the distance. And once he is close, he performs the ultimate verification step,
Which is,
a meticulous, close-quarters olfactory inspection of her private area.
now wait a minute. We just spent a massive amount of time talking about how his vomeronasal organ can detect her pheromones from miles away. Why does he need to bury his nose in her hindquarters to verify anything? Doesn't he already know?
He knows a female is in heat in the vicinity, but he needs to verify the concentration gradient.
The concentration gradient.
Yes, the pheromones are strongest directly at the source. By sniffing her directly, he is confirming that this specific female is the one emitting the signal. And he is assessing the exact microscopic chemical breakdown of her discharge to ensure she has fully entered the ovulatory phase of estrus.
Oh, I
There's a
see.
difference between smelling a bakery from down the street and actually looking into the oven to see if the bread is baked.
Oh, that is a great way to put it. That makes perfect sense. Now, not all of his vocalizations are soft grumbles. When he is not right next to her, he uses a completely different acoustic strategy. Howling. He will sing these canine love songs to the wind.
Howling serves a dual evolutionary purpose in courtship. First, it is a display of vitality. A deep, resonant, sustained howl requires immense lung capacity, chest strength, and energy.
So he's showing off.
Basically,
Oh.
he is essentially broadcasting his physical fitness to the female over long distances. Listen to the power of my lungs. I am strong.
But he is also talking to the competition again, isn't he?
He absolutely is. The howl acts as an auditory fence. He is laying claim to the female and warning other males in the territory. It is a long-distance threat that says, a dominant suitor is already here. If you approach, you will have to deal with me.
It's a way to handle things without actually fighting.
Exactly. It is a way to intimidate rivals without having to expend the energy of a physical fight.
Speaking of energy, this next behavior completely blew my mind when I read the source material. Courtship feeding.
Ah, yes.
We all know that dogs are instinctively resource guarders. They protect their food. But a male dog in the throes of courtship will actively bring food to the female, drop it at her feet, or even gently offer it directly from his mouth.
It's remarkable to watch.
Well, wait, I have to push back on this because it seems totally counterintuitive. We just said that the mating drive makes him so obsessive he forgets to eat. If he finally has food, how is an evolutionary drive so strong that it overrides his basic survival greed, making him voluntarily give his meal away?
It is one of the most stunning behavioral overrides in the animal kingdom. And to understand it, we have to look back at the evolutionary history of the dog, back to their wild ancestors.
Okay, set the scene for us.
In a harsh, wild environment, successfully raising a litter of puppies requires a massive caloric investment. A pregnant or nursing female is incredibly vulnerable and cannot hunt effectively for herself.
So the male's value isn't just in his genes, it's in his ability to be a provider.
Precisely. Courtship feeding is like a resume submission. By willingly forfeiting high-value nutrition, the male is proving two vital things to the female. First, he is proving he is a skilled enough hunter or forager to secure excess resources.
Oh, I'm so good at finding food. I have extra.
Right. And second, he is demonstrating the behavioral willingness to share those resources with her. It is an evolutionary promise that if she mates with him, he will stick around and help sustain her and her offspring.
Wow.
The drive to prove his viability as a long-term provider temporarily overrides his own immediate hunger.
It is a tangible, physical proof of fitness. And he backs that up with displays of sheer stamina, too. The male will start running in wide circles, jumping, and playing aggressively hard around the female.
This ties into a concept in evolutionary biology known as the handicap principle.
The idea that I am so fit, I can afford to waste energy.
Exactly. Courtship, especially when fasting and stressed, is physically exhausting. By engaging in high energy, demanding physical feats, sprinting, leaping, wrestling, The male is showing off his genetic quality.
He's flexing.
He is. He is saying, look at the excess energy I have. Look at my agility and my cardiovascular health. I am so genetically robust that I can afford to waste calories performing these gymnastics for you.
And for the female, that's what she wants.
Right. For a female whose biological imperative is to secure the strongest possible genes for her puppies, a male with boundless, seemingly inexhaustible energy is the prime candidate.
But this performance, this athletic and vocal audition, it does not happen in a vacuum. A male dog will act very differently depending on his environment and who else is watching. The context shapes everything.
Context is huge.
We have to look at the impact of environment and pack hierarchy on these courtship rituals.
Context is the invisible hand guiding all of this behavior. The physical environment and the social density dictate the intensity, the urgency, and the aggression levels of the courtship display.
Let's compare an urban environment to a rural one. In an urban area like a dense city neighborhood or a large crowded dog park, you have a high concentration of dogs in a small geographic footprint. This leads to highly competitive, aggressive, and assertive mating displays.
It does.
It makes me think of like a high-stress, crowded nightclub. Everyone is posturing, the music is loud, space is tight, and if you want to talk to someone, you have to be loud and aggressive to cut through the competition. But a rural setting where dogs are spread out on large farms is more like a quiet, laid-back coffee shop date.
That analogy is perfectly aligned with the biology. In an urban environment or a densely populated kennel, the background noise of pheromones is deafening. The male dog's vomeronasal organ is constantly being bombarded.
So he's just overwhelmed with signals.
Yes, he knows chemically that there are dozens of other intact males within striking distance.
So his ambient stress levels and cortisol are already through the roof.
Yes, the proximity breeds extreme urgency. He knows that if he does not act quickly, assertively, and often aggressively, a rival will intercept the female. There is no time for long, nuanced, polite courtship.
He just skips the small talk.
Exactly. The displays become truncated, dominant, and fiercely competitive. But in a rural setting, that competitive pressure is removed. The lack of immediate rivals lowers the cortisol levels.
Great.
The male feels secure in his isolation with the female, allowing him to take his time, engage in the gentle playbows, the courtship feeding, and the extended rituals without the constant looming threat of a challenge.
And this environmental pressure ties directly into the social architecture of the dogs themselves, the pack hierarchy. If you have multiple dogs in a space, there is a strict social order. And when a female goes into heat, the top male, or the dominant dog, asserts absolute priority.
The alpha male's entire strategy revolves around spatial control. His courtship display is directed just as much at the other males as it is at the female.
What does he do?
He will use his physical bulk to body block rivals. He will position himself constantly between the female and the rest of the pack. His posturing, standing tall, ears forward, tail high and stiff, is a continuous visual threat to the subordinates.
He is physically walling her off, but what do the submissive males do? They don't just lose their biological drive, they don't just walk away and give up.
No, their drive is just as strong, but their strategy has to adapt if they want to survive. In biology, we often call these sneaker tactics.
Sneaker tactics, I love that.
It fits perfectly. A submissive male knows that if he engages in a grandiose, assertive display, the dominant male will attack him. So, the submissive male has to walk an incredibly delicate, high-stakes diplomatic tightrope.
How does he do that? What does a sneaker courtship look like?
He shrinks himself. He will approach the female with his body lowered to the ground, his tail tucked tight against his belly, and his ears pinned back.
Trying to be invisible?
Right. He will aggressively avoid direct eye contact with both the alpha and the female. He will offer very low, polite playbows. He's attempting to interact with the female's pheromones and court her while simultaneously screaming in dog body language to the alpha, "I am a puppy, I am not a threat, I am not challenging your authority, please do not attack me."
It is a masterclass in behavioral deception. And this hierarchy dynamic is exactly where mounting behaviors become incredibly confusing for people to interpret. We know mounting is driven by testosterone, but it is very frequently not about the physical act of mating at all, is it?
This is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in the canine world. Mounting is a multi-tool. Yes, it is the mechanical act of copulation. But in a pack setting, when a female is in heat, the ambient testosterone levels of all the males in the vicinity skyrocket.
Just from being near the pheromones.
Exactly. This hormonal surge fuels a deep need to establish and reaffirm rank.
So you will actually see males mounting other males.
Constantly. A dominant male will mount a submissive male to remind him who is in charge. Subordinate males will mount each other as they scramble to redefine their hierarchy just beneath the alpha.
Wow.
A male might even mount the female from the front or the side, completely non-reproductively, just to assert physical control over her movements. It is a physical manifestation of dominance, a way of saying, I control the terms of this interaction and I control this space.
And if you are a professional breeder managing a high-density kennel, you absolutely must understand this dynamic because a multi-dog kennel inherently mimics that high-stress, crowded, urban environment. You've concentrated the pheromones and forced proximity.
You have.
Yeah.
And if you put multiple intact males and a female in heat in the same visual or olfactory space, and you do not intimately understand your pack's hierarchy, the situation will detonate.
It sounds like a powder keg.
It is. If a submissive male's sneaker tactic is slightly too bold, or if two evenly matched males decide to challenge the alpha simultaneously, that posturing and mounting will instantly escalate into a full-blown fight.
And dogfights driven by reproductive competition are not like normal scuffles over a toy.
They are brutal. The pain tolerance of a dog flooded with adrenaline and testosterone is massive. They will not back down. Severe, career-ending, or life-threatening injuries can happen in a matter of seconds.
That's terrifying.
This is why managing the physical space, using solid visual barriers so competing males cannot make eye contact, and understanding exactly who sits where in your pack's social order is the foundation of safe kennel management.
Which brings us to the most practical, everyday application of all this science. With all this talk of dominance, mounting, playbows, and posturing, we run into the biggest point of confusion for pet owners and newer breeders alike. How do you know if dogs are actually engaged in a mating ritual, or if they're just being friends? Distinguishing mating from playful social bonding is vital to avoid unnecessary panic.
We really have to establish a fundamental baseline here. Domestic dogs are highly social animals. They process the world and build their relationships through physical interaction.
Like chasing and wrestling.
Exactly. Playful interactions, chasing each other around the yard, wrestling, tumbling, and social bonding, are common, everyday occurrences that are completely divorced from reproduction.
And the biological rule is very explicit. True mating behavior, instinct-driven reproductive pursuit, only occurs when a female is actively in a heat cycle. If the female is spayed, or if an intact female is not in heat, they are not mating, period.
Correct. But the confusion arises because the physical vocabulary of play deeply overlaps with the vocabulary of courtship. Dogs use the playbow to initiate a game of tag. They use chasing as a game. They use mounting during play as an overstimulated social behavior.
Because the actions look the same, humans conflate the two. You see an owner at a dog park absolutely panicking, screaming, and ripping their dog away because one dog is mounting another, assuming it's a dangerous mating situation. But usually it's just an over-aroused game of wrestling or a brief, harmless dominance check among friends.
And that misinterpretation has consequences. It leads to owners unnecessarily punishing their dogs for normal social communication. It leads to restricting their social lives, causing anxiety. Or owners of intact dogs panic about accidental litters when it is biologically impossible for a pregnancy to occur.
It just causes so much stress for everyone.
It does. This is why we have to train our eyes to see the nuances of body language, metacommunication, and above all, context.
Let's use the playbow as a prime example. It's the exact same physical movement, front, elbows down, rear up. How do we tell the difference?
You look at the tension and the follow-through. A playbow during a casual Tuesday afternoon in the backyard is characterized by loose, floppy body language. The dog's mouth is relaxed, often open in a play face.
Like they're smiling almost.
Yes. And crucially, it involves metacommunication. The dog might give a soft play growl, signaling, what I'm about to do next is just a game. It is an invitation to mutually exchange roles. I chase you, then you chase me.
But a playbow in a mating context is completely different.
Completely. A playbow from a male courting a female in heat is rigid. The muscles are coiled. His mouth is likely closed, or he is intensely lip-licking. There is no role reversal. He has no intention of letting her chase him.
He's totally locked in.
Yes. It is a calculated, tense move designed to keep her engaged while he maneuvers for a better position. The physical geometry of the bow is the same, but the biological intent completely transforms the energy of the action.
So for a newer breeder watching their pack, or an owner at a park, what is the absolute clearest telltale sign that an interaction has crossed the line from a friendly game of chase into an actual instinct-driven mating ritual?
The defining characteristic is a shift in intensity and the presence of singular obsessive focus. Play is democratic and fluid. Dogs get distracted during play. A leaf blows by, a door opens, you shake a bag of treats, and the play stops as they investigate.
But mating drive cannot be distracted.
Exactly. In a mating pursuit, the male's focus becomes myopic. He will constantly, relentlessly try to redirect his physical position to investigate her hindquarters. He will completely ignore outside stimuli.
Nothing can pull him away.
Nothing. You could call his name, you could throw a high-value treat like a hot dog right next to him, and he will not even look at it. Because his vomeronasal organ has locked his brain onto her chemical signals. If the interaction is entirely one-sided, intensely focused on sniffing and licking her private areas, accompanied by dilated pupils and heavy panting, and he is deaf to the world around him, you are no longer watching play. You're witnessing an instinct-driven sequence.
That inability to break focus is the ultimate tell, and recognizing that shift is the foundation of keeping your dog safe. Now, we need to synthesize all of this behavioral science, biology, and environmental psychology into actionable protocols for the responsible breeder. How do we translate this into everyday management?
It requires building a comprehensive, proactive safety protocol. The very first step is continuous, educated observation. You have to monitor your pack constantly for the warning signs of dangerous mating competition before it escalates into a physical confrontation.
You are looking for the behavioral shifts we discussed earlier. Sudden, uncharacteristic aggression toward other males, extreme restlessness, the hyperfixation.
If you have a male who normally lounges in the yard,
Hmm.
but suddenly he is aggressively pacing the fence line, panting heavily, refusing to break his visual lock on the female's quarantine area, and he is growling at a dog he has lived with peacefully for years. His stress levels are in the red zone.
He's a ticking time bomb.
He is a hazard to himself, to the other dogs, and potentially to you if you step into the middle of it.
Which brings up the absolute necessity of active supervision. You cannot just put an intact male and a receptive female together in a yard, go inside to make a cup of coffee, and hope they figure it out safely.
Never. Because while we have outlined a very structured sequence of flirtation and posturing, dogs are individuals. Some dogs are incredibly forward.
They don't read the manual.
Right. A male might completely bypass the gentlemanly approach, skip the play bows, and attempt to mount a female before she is fully receptive. If she feels threatened, she will defend herself violently. The window between an approach and a physical altercation or an unintended locked tie can literally be measured in seconds.
Breeders cannot rely entirely on behavioral tells to intervene in time. You have to be physically present.
You must be in the room, within arm's reach, actively managing the space. If the female shows signs of distress or the male becomes too aggressive, you must be there to separate them instantly.
And we also need to talk about the physical toll this process takes, because I think it is severely underestimated. The heat cycle isn't just a few days. It can last weeks. The physical demands on the dogs are immense.
The metabolic cost is staggering. For the male, sustaining those high levels of adrenaline and cortisol for days on end leads to rapid weight loss. If his drive overrides his thirst, he can easily become dehydrated.
Just from pure exhaustion.
Yes. The sheer physical exhaustion of pacing and posturing compromises his immune system.
And the female is dealing with her own hormonal storm at the same time.
The female is enduring the physical discomfort of tissue swelling, the anxiety of the hormonal fluctuations, and the psychological stress of constant, intense attention from the males. Her immune system is also depressed, making her highly vulnerable to the UTIs and vaginitis we discussed earlier.
This is why synthesizing these lessons into a safety manifesto is so critical for breeders. It's about total environmental control. You must monitor social interactions constantly. You must use physical barriers like double-gated systems and visual barriers like solid walls to prevent competing males from locking eyes.
Yes, visual barriers are a lifesaver.
You must manage the airflow and use negative pressure ventilation to control the spread of pheromones. You have to inspect the female's health daily, watching like a hawk for that frantic licking that indicates an infection. Essentially, as a breeder, you aren't just putting two dogs in a room. You are acting as a referee, a health inspector, and a behavioral psychologist all at once to ensure nobody gets hurt.
That is the exact reality of the job. You are engineering the environment to reduce ambient stress. You are refereeing the pack hierarchy to prevent aggression. You are inspecting their physical anatomy daily. It requires a profound, respectful understanding of the species, recognizing that you are managing incredibly powerful evolutionary forces.
It really does change the way you look at dogs entirely. It makes you realize how complex their internal lives are. Which leads me to a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over as we wrap up.
I love these final thoughts.
We have spent an hour talking about this hidden layer of communication, the vomeronasal organ, the hormones, the VOCs. If a male dog's sense of smell can detect a pheromone from miles away, entirely hijacking his brain, making him forget to eat or sleep, and driving him to sing love songs to the wind, how much of a dog's daily reality is shaped by invisible chemical messages that we, as humans, are completely oblivious to?
It's humbling, really.
When we look at a quiet yard, our dogs might be experiencing a loud, chaotic, invisible symphony of scents. It makes you realize that while they live in our houses, we are just visitors in their sensory world. Thank you for listening, dear Brigadiers, and if you have any questions, visit the source article on Dogazilla magazine at dogazilla.com. That was all for this episode, and until the next time, bye to all listeners of the Bark Brigade podcast.